This video is focused on the coding panel widget. We're going to do an overview of the widget. We're going to talk about making a coding panel and then using a coding panel. So let's hop straight into the tool and open up the coding panel. You can see immediately it's divided into 4 sections: issues, labels, and custom columns up top, and then the coding panel we're building here on the bottom. For those of you who have only used FTK, you're probably only familiar with labels, and you really only need to use labels. But there is also this concept of issues and custom columns, and let me quickly explain those. Issues are just another type of tag. Frankly, think of them as another set of labels that you can just use for organizational purposes. If you're happy with labels, just keep using labels. There's really nothing particularly special about issues. Custom columns, however, though, are a little bit different. You can make 4 or 5 different types of custom columns. I'll show that to you in a second here. And there, you are actually constructing a column in the database. So when you make a custom column, a new column will show up in your grid if you set up your grid correctly. And that can be quite useful for a number of different things. And finally, once we select the right tags we want and create everything we want, we can build it all into a coding panel. So let's go ahead and do that, and let me show you how that works. So I'm logging into a case. I need to be in a case because tags are generally case specific, as are custom columns. And so for this widget, if you will, to activate, you have to be actively in a case. So you see I pulled up a case and then all these widgets filled in. And you can see I've got 4 different issues, and I've got sort of one that's a sub issue of another. And then, I've got my labels and I have my custom columns over here. If I want to create an issue, I can just right click here and it will ask for a new one. If I want to create an issue underneath an existing issue, I can right click here and just do new again. You can create issues and labels all in the facets widget. So if you've seen that video and you're comfortable with that method, just keep using that method. No need to do it here. But if you want, you can do it here. Same is true with labels. Of course, labels offers you the ability to create a folder as well as a label. Issues doesn't have that concept. And then finally, custom columns. Let me show you those. That's a little bit more complex. As I said, there are 5 different types. You can have a checkbox, a date, a number, a radio, or a text box. Most of the time, I would expect people to use just sort of the date, number, or text, and frankly, most of the time, just text. But radio buttons and check buttons do exist if you need them. When you create one, well, let's go ahead and create one so you can see the process. When we create one, we'll just do simple text. It will ask you to enter a column name. Don't put spaces, put big sort of text here, no spaces, because this becomes a column name in the database. And the database doesn't allow for spaces within its names. So let's just cancel out of that because we have more than enough here. Let me just draw your attention to the one different one here, which is the Tim custom column. That, I believe, is a checkbox. It might be a radio box. I don't know. But the critical point is it has values underneath it. And so once you create that checkbox, it will show up here. And then to create values underneath it, you need to right click here and enter new value. And then it will just pop up and you can go ahead and create it and you'll be off and running. Now let's combine all these to build ourselves a coding panel. To get any one of these tags down here into the coding panel, it's super easy. It's as simple as double clicking. If you double click on a parent folder, both it and its child will come down here. If you decide you don't want the child, you can just double click from here and it will move back up here. It's really all that simple. So we can go ahead and do gov. Let's do fed. Let's actually clear out issues and then do the sub issue. And I'll explain why we did that in a second here. And then let's just do a simple Tim2, just text value. It could choose in any one of these. It really doesn't matter. All right, so now we've got built our coding panel here. There is one other type of tag slash column slash whatever that you can add to a coding panel. And that is here the database column. One of the cool things about Quincy is it allows you to code into any column you want. So a typical choice for people will be authors. So you can go ahead and code into the authors column, the author of a document. If, let's say, what was produced to you was a bunch of TIFFs and the metadata has been struck out of it, and you have people going through assigning authors to the different documents, this is a great way to do it. So now I have authors here. Now, let me draw your attention to two other cool or interesting capabilities. First, this column here where you see the number. This is the order column. I should probably have them change it to say order here. But nonetheless, it is the order column. And you can make these show up in whatever order you want. So let's say we want gov2 to be first, we'll leave it as 0. Fed, we want to be, let's say, last, so we'll give it a big number, 10. Tim will make 2, authors will make 3, Tim will make 1, authors will make 3, and this one will make 2. Again, I'm just choosing random. It doesn't really matter. The point is they will now be in this order where gov2 is first, Tim is second, sub-issue is third, authors is fourth, and fed is fifth. The last thing worth drawing your attention to is the presence of hotkeys. Hotkeys are a way of making coding much faster for your users. So let's say we expect them to code sub-issue and, well, we expect them to use this one a lot, so we're going to give it the M key. And let's say we want them to code it at the same time we do the gov label. So for some reason, we expect both of these quite often to be coded together. And so we're, just for simplicity's sake, going to give them both the M key. And then fed, we'll give the P key. Well, let's do N key. The only key to avoid is the L key. The L key has special meaning, and I will discuss that when we're utilizing the coding panel. So we've got these hotkeys assigned. Now let's give this coding panel a name. Let's call it video demo. All right, and let's assign it to the Stefan user, and we'll go ahead and save this. One important point to mention is you should really never use the administrator user, but if you do use it, you should know the coding panels are really meant to be assigned to users and used not by somebody who has the ability to make coding panels. This user has the ability to create coding panels, and I'll show you how you assign that. But coding panels are meant to be used, if you will, by the others. So utilizing this coding panel is, again, it's something that's meant to be assigned. So if you want to use the administrator user, give yourself another user to actually use the coding panel. Make a administrator user or something like that. Nonetheless, anyway, it will work either way, but that's a good discipline. So we've made our coding panel. If we scroll down here, you can see our video demo coding panel is there, and we're all set to use it. So before I log out and log back in as a user, let me just show you one permission that's of importance. I'm just going to come over here to Actions, and you can see Create Coding Panels. If a user either needs to be an administrator or have this privilege, or have this permission, to be able to see the screen the way we just saw it and create coding panels. All right, so now let me log out and log back in. Okay, we've logged in as our Stefan user. Let's open up the coding panel. We can see sort of nothing. It looks different. Yeah, this guy only has access to the coding panels and not the the other panels. And let's go ahead and, well, actually, first of all, let me explain why you can see no coding panels. Because as we said, coding panels are case specific because tags are case specific. So let's go enter the case we have access to. And once we load that case, we're going to see now we have access to some coding panels. Well, we have access to a lot of coding panels in this case. Let's go into the one we just made. And here we have the labels we created in the order we created them, with the hotkeys assigned, and the ones that have sort of text-based entry have a text field there. So let's use the coding panel now in a couple of different contexts. First, let's go to pictures so we have something interesting to code. We're going to open up our grid. And we can see our pictures already have some coding, but let's go ahead and select a couple, and then let's go ahead and just code them. We'll just do the TIM2 code first, and we'll enter just a bunch of junk here. And we want to apply this one, and then we click apply. And it's going to code these with that value in the TIM2 column. Notice the grid doesn't refresh automatically. That's simply because we don't want it to flicker on you and sort of drive you nuts. But if you go ahead and do that, you can see that the columns were updated. And this will work for all of these different columns. In addition, if we wanted to go ahead and utilize our hotkeys, we could now press Alt-M, and it's asking us if we want to tag families, and I said no. And M is gov2 and issue2, and you can see the gov2 automatically gets assigned. The issue2 needs to be refreshed to assign, but there you go. Those worked. Last thing to note is that we do have this cool sort of code and move feature for those users that have only been assigned or that want to work through the viewer. So let's say like this. So let's come down here to some documents that aren't coded. Let's remove these. And let's say that they want to work like this. They've got their documents here. They've got their coding panel here. And they just want to say, okay, go ahead and apply and move to the next one. They can just click here. It will code it how I have it set it up and then advance the document to the next one. So all we need to do is let's go ahead and actually do that. Let's do it with, no, let's, oh, excuse me. This is something worth showing as well. This is not going to the indeterminate state. That's because these type of ones don't have that. You can only code them positive or not at all. But let's go ahead and code fed. And then let's code that for this document, and then hopefully it will advance to the next document. There we go. So it coded it, and it moved on to the next document. And then we could say, okay, we want to code this one, and move on to the next one. And now if we go back, we should see that those documents were coded with the fed label. So let's go and let's refresh. And there we go. Those were the two, fed right there. We can also actually code multiple at one time if we wanted. So we showed the fed, but let's say I wanted to do fed, and I wanted to do this one, and I wanted to do this one. I could just do that by clicking here, and it'll apply all those records to whatever's selected. So that's it. That's the coding widget. Hopefully that was helpful, and you find this a valuable feature. Thank you very much.